Hey, you're not Steve Argyle.
No. Was he here?
Yeah. He was our Dan for 2 episodes.
Okay, that's cool.
I got some very fun stories out of him.
Did he do any food heists?
He didn't do any food heists.
Okay,
we didn't prep him.
I don't have any prepared either, so...
Well, you're not a very good Dan.
I'm failing as a Dan. Maybe I can be a good Steve?
Yeah, okay. How's your art?
How's my art?
Yeah.
My visual art is terrible.
How's your stories about... You're going to have to listen to this episode because he got a job working at a tech company with a program he had never used.
Okay.
And they realized after he kind of tricked his way through the interview to get the job that he didn't, but they were too busy to fire him. And he spent the month, but while they were too busy to fire him, learning the program well enough that they didn't fire him.
Wow.
And that's how he got into art, because this was like CAD stuff.
That's cool.
And things. He did the thing you're not supposed to do, and he just completely lied on his resume.
Made it work.
Well, he says he didn't say a single lie. And talking through it, he didn't. But yeah, he's got a wild story.
Deliberately misleading, though.
Of even trying to buy the program, which wasn't for sale at any place in Utah. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will listen to the Steve episodes.
You were on a boat.
I was on a boat for so long.
That was like I looked at the thing. It was like 14-day cruise.
It was a 15-day cruise. 4 of those days were in Japan.
Yeah.
And then 11 days crossing the Pacific Ocean.
Those crossing ones that they do. All right.
Yeah, it was long.
Okay. I probably would have really enjoyed that because I don't get bored if I have a chair and an ocean view.
See, I enjoyed it a lot because it was a gaming cruise. And they had brought me along to run their RPG department.
Okay.
So I got to play RPGs every day.
Nice.
Crossing the ocean.
What did you play most of the time?
I did a huge campaign of what is kind of sort of a homebrew historical Japanese setting that I call Monogatari. And that was kind of Heian period Japan, rise of the Minamoto shogunate.
Yep.
And we did 10 sessions of it, and it was fantastic. I loved it.
And it's your own homebrew rule set?
Sort of. It is based on Pendragon.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard of that and never played it. So
Pendragon is one of my very favorite RPGs. They were going to they had talked internally, is what I've heard from a friend, about doing a samurai version of Pendragon, which never happened. I may or may not have a partial manuscript of that.
Okay.
So based on Pendragon, based on that manuscript,
I
homebrewed my own rules and my own campaign system onto it.
That is partially homebrew made by the people who made the original game.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was very cool.
Cool for them for getting you a copy of that half-finished manuscript.
I know. Maybe. Yeah, which may or may not exist.
Yeah.
The funny part was we crossed the international date line. So we had Cinco de Mayo twice. And they actually pushed, we were well across the date line before they said, okay, we're repeating a day. But yeah, most of my players showed up very hungover the next morning to play that one.
I didn't even notice it was Cinco de Mayo. I feel so. Yeah.
Well,
I should have gotten some Mexican food.
I know, because I certainly didn't get any. Cruise ships can do a lot of things really well, food-wise. Mexican food is typically not one of them.
Yeah.
But I have a pretty high bar for that anyway.
That you do. What do you think of what's the best U.S. derivation of Mexican food, right? If you're not going to get like the Mexican food that you like as a person who lived in Mexico and wants just actual Mexican food, what Americanized version is your favorite? What subgenre?
Yeah,
do you know them well enough? Like New Mexican is its own thing?
If I do. I am not a huge fan of Tex-Mex.
Okay.
I do like it. I think it's very good. but it's not what I seek out.
Not a huge fan versus I think it's very good. Those two phrases are fighting with one another.
The problem is that I live in Utah. Utah does Tex-Mex very, very poorly. If I'm in Texas, it's great.
Okay. So I wouldn't even, in my head, those are two different subgenres.
Okay.
Like Tex-Mex, I know it's become genericized and it's all just kind of Americanized Mexican food. But I consider like Arizonan and Californian and Texan Mexican food different than Utah Mexican.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that Utah, I'm gonna disagree with you that Utah does it poorly. What Utah does poorly is variety. So Utah, and from my guess, maybe this is Brandon's Conspiracy Corner.
Ooh, okay.
Brandon's Conspiracy Corner. Low stakes Conspiracy Corner. Right? Like, I think that there was one cook in Utah that started a restaurant and had a few restaurants, and everyone else worked for them or someone who worked for them
And
learned
them.
those recipes and mimics them, because you get the exact same flavor palette at every one of these hole-in-the-wall Mexican places in Utah, and I think it is actually good. I came from Nebraska. It's better here. But it's a little blander than you get in California. Arizona might be my favorite. Texas. New Mexican's its own thing, and I really like the New Mexican. But all of those have a stronger flavor palette. But the things in Utah are not bad. They're just a little blander.
Oh, yeah.
And they are all the same. Every one of them does the exact same chicken chimichanga, the exact same way, the exact same flavors, the exact same spears of avocado on the top, laid out the same way.
I definitely don't want to suggest that Utah Mexican food is terrible. There are a handful of Mexican restaurants here that I would stack up against the best you'd find down by the border.
But that's because you usually eat the fish.
Well,
at those places, the non-fish stuff seems to taste the same to me.
Well, there's a lot of good fish stuff. There's a lot of good mole here.
Yeah. Oh, the mole, I would give you that.
Yeah.
There is, so the Salt Lake ones are their own different thing. I'm talking Utah County.
Utah County, tends to be very samey.
No, the blue iguana and the red iguana, whichever one you like better, do have their individual unique flavor palettes for Utah. And there's some good stuff there.
Yeah. In terms of my favorite U.S. Mexican food, I'm going to say San Jose, California.
Okay.
I've eaten at a handful of restaurants there. I don't often have reason to go to San Jose, but when I am there for a Comic-Con or something, it is always spectacular. More so even than further south, which I think is counterintuitive. You would expect the closer to the border, the closer it would be, but...
Maybe, like the further from the border, the more an individual kind of subgenre has a chance to develop, separate from... it is interesting to be able to watch that and see how these things all derive. Like, it's not that Tex-Mex is just bad Mexican food. It's people came in, used the ingredients they had, built their own subculture of food, and it gained its own lore. And it's like how there's American pizza. American pizza is not bad Italian pizza. American pizza is a different subgenre
it's an entirely
of pizza.
different thing, which is why I don't want to badmouth Tex-Mex itself. Because like I said, in Texas, it's great. Local places that try to do Tex-Mex, I think, fall down pretty hard. But
I'm curious to know. I would like to know, like, because Korean food is one of my things. I would be curious to know if Korean food. We've had this kind of Korean chicken invasion.
Oh yeah,
right. And that is not chicken I ever had in Korea, but I lived there 30 years ago. Yeah. Right. And so I'd be curious if that is Koreans in America creating their own subgenre of Korean food and it popularizing, or if it came over from Korea.
I suspect that it came over because I've seen it pop up on a handful of like travel food shows.
Okay.
And also every K-drama that I've ever watched,
they eat it.
They eat fried chicken.
Oh, fried chicken. Yes.
The Korean fried chicken.
I've never had the Korean. It was KFC when I was there. Everyone ate KFC.
Yeah, everyone eats KFC throughout Asia, but the specific Korean fried chicken that they that they do here, where it's kind of double fried and very syrupy.
Yeah.
That shows up on K-dramas all the time.
It must just be it probably was something that was starting maybe when I was there, and it just hadn't become a thing yet. Because the Korean corn dogs were a huge thing when I was there. And those are finally popping over here.
Finally arriving here.
And we don't have one in Utah yet, but...
There is a place that'll do Korean corn dogs in Salt Lake.
Okay. You'll have to take me there because...
Salt Lake has a really good Chinatown.
Oh,
which
I've heard
is
about this.
all of the various Asian cultures in one spot, and there's a lot of good restaurants, and one of them does Korean corn dogs.
One of my Korean friends was pitching that place to me.
Yeah.
Because there's some other things. The Korean food in Utah has leveled up lately. Something in the last couple of years. I don't love a lot of the Korean fried chicken things because it's not nostalgic for me.
Yeah.
But I was able to get a kimchi jjigae from a place recently that was just top tier.
Cool.
Excellent. And we've started to get some kalbi places and things like that popping up. So I'm happy about that.
There's a lot more Korean barbecue places here than there used to be.
The K-dramas. The K-dramas making people interested in Korean food. Therefore, we can have more Korean restaurants. Therefore, they can compete with each other for the better Korean restaurants to survive.
Well, and I wonder if some of it might also be Cupbop. Not that Cupbop itself is a shining example of Korean authenticity, but it is a local Utah origin restaurant that is blowing up all over the place.
Yeah, it's not
and
Korean
maybe that
food, though.
Gave
it's Chinese.
people a taste for it. I don't know.
It's got japchae in it. It's not Korean.
I don't know.
It's Chinese.
I enjoy it. I don't know how accurate it is.
But only Chinese in Korea.
But you have described it to me as Korean Taco Bell.
It is Korean Taco Bell.
Which, I think is a pretty fair assessment.
What is japchae or whatever you just said?
It's the glass noodles.
Glass noodles.
Oh.
So in Korea, there's a few dishes that if you ask the Koreans, they're like, oh, this is good. Is this Korean food? They're like, no, it's Chinese food. But you don't get it in China. And japchae is one of the ones that they always describe to me as Chinese food. And it's weird because there are Chinese restaurants in Korea, which are another thing that you just can't get here.
Yeah.
Is Chinese food from Korea. Just like, we have Tex-Mex, they have, and I really like it. And you can't really get it because, you're not going to have Chinese, Korean, restaurant in
the
America.
Chinese food in Germany was completely different than U.S., and I loved it. It's the first thing I eat every time I go back.
But the weird thing about japchae, which is why I say in tongue-in-cheek that that's Chinese food, is they serve it at all the Korean restaurants in Korea. It's the one that you can get that you don't have to go to the Chinese restaurant to get. They still have it. And they make it in the anyway, but they insisted repeatedly to me that japchae was not Korean.
That's interesting.
And so Cupbop has japchae in it. So
I wonder if that is similar to the phenomenon where most Asian restaurants are starting to put sushi on their menus.
Yeah.
Like regardless of cultural origin.
Yeah.
Just because they know Americans like it.
Well, and here's the weird thing. This is maybe we're getting too far in the weeds. But you've been gone for a while, so we get to do this. In Korea, what we would call sushi, they would not call sushi.
Okay.
Because sushi, the roll, that's just kimbap.
Oh.
Do you know what kimbap is?
I do, yeah.
So kimbap is a roll, what you would call a sushi roll, but it's like a sandwich. To Koreans. It's like if you're going to go on a picnic, you'll make yourself a roll, and it may have fish and it may not. Usually they don't. Like there's lots of them that's got like beef or whatever. It's but there's just something in the center, and then the rice around it, and then the
nori on the outside.
Yeah, and that's a sandwich.
Well, and people always complain about how culturally asinine it is to have sushi burrito, which is another Utah chain, but that's just what it is.
Whenever I got sushi in Korea, and they'd say, "Oh, this is Japanese food," it was what we would call sashimi. It's a long strip of something above a rice, which I don't know if that's I don't know sushi. I mean, sushi. Whenever you look, that's
called
a genre.
sashimi as well. Yeah.
But I never really saw. No one gave me the rolls when I was there. There was always something like that when they're like, "Oh, we have Japanese food," and it was that.
I do need to say that on my trip to Japan,
yes,
I had the best sashimi I've ever had in my entire life. It was in a little town on the north of Honshu, the island, called Aomori. And we happened to be there on a festival day, so there were like parades and dances all over town. And we went to a restaurant, and I ordered sashimi, and it was stellar. It was spectacular.
Did you get any ramen?
I did, and it was not super great.
Wasn't it? That's too bad.
I got it at the same place. I ordered sashimi and ramen, and the ramen didn't do it for me. But the sashimi, again, was about the greatest thing I've ever had.
Because the best ramen I've ever had was in Japan.
And that makes sense. And that's why I was kind of surprised that it was a little lackluster.
Yep.
I took my dad with me.
Okay.
On the huge trip because he served his mission in Japan.
Oh, okay.
And has not been back for 50 years.
Wow.
So I took him with me.
Okay. When was that then that he was like the 70s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The exact timing is that he was on his mission from 74 to 76.
Okay.
And I was born 10 months after he got home.
So probably a lot has changed.
Yeah. But one thing he wanted to make sure to eat, like top of his list, we have to find this, was okonomiyaki.
Okay.
And we found a place, and it had changed, and he kind of grumbled a bit about, they've made it so much fancier since I used to live here. But it was great. I really loved the okonomiyaki that we had.
Because anytime I hear about Japan and the progress and the changes it's made, I think of those guys that lived in Guam, the Japanese soldiers who refused to stop fighting and lived in the jungles for decades.
They didn't know the war was over.
Refused to accept the war was over until they managed to get a commanding officer come. I just think of those poor guys leaving from Imperial Japan and coming back to anime girls and idols and all of that culture and just thinking, what the changes
that you would have to
adapt to. Yep. So
it was fun. Our hotel, when we first got there, we flew into Tokyo and our hotel was down in Yokohama.
Okay.
And like 1 block away from Yokohama's Chinatown. So that was fun. One of the days we were there, we were out at some like little cafe thing eating breakfast. And we kept seeing high school students out of uniform walk past us.
Okay.
From the subway station to the park that was down the hall. And we went, after we finished eating, we were like, we need to see what's going on. There were hundreds and hundreds, multiple high schools worth of kids that were all there in the park and then all went to Chinatown at the same time. And I don't know if that was field day or if it was a particular festival day. I have no idea.
I mean, you were there for a festival, so theoretically.
Well, Aomori was definitely a festival. And Aomori is where they do these really cool parade floats.
Okay.
They're made out of wire and paper, so they're light and they are lit from inside.
Okay.
And that was really fun.
That is cool.
Yeah. And then our other stop was Hakodate, which was basically just a shopping town.
Well, I sat in a room and worked on books. Yep. That's what I would have done on a cruise, though. So Don's like, you guys should do a catch-up episode. I'm like, catch up on what? He's like, you went on a writing retreat. How was that? And I said, it's the same
sat in a
as
room.
they all are. I sat in a room and worked on books.
Did you eat fancy food?
No.
You just ate
microwave
mac and cheese.
Yeah, sandwiches, microwave mac and cheese, whatever. Like Becky goes up and stocks the place for me because it's Sundance and there's not food delivery.
Yeah.
So I could go down to the fancy restaurant if I wanted to, but the point of being in the writing retreat is just work on some stories.
To ignore the world around you.
Though I didn't quite get to this time as much because I had bought tickets to take my brother and sister to see Wicked when it came into town. So I actually had to leave the retreat and go watch Wicked.
Oh. Did you enjoy it?
Yes. I have seen it before, but it's been a long time. I purposely didn't watch the movie because I knew the play was coming through. Having watched the play again, I bet the play is fast. They cram so much into that, which is good, but there's never time to linger. I watched that play and I thought, you know what? This is going to make a good adaptation. and it deserves to be split.
Yeah. I am actually not a big fan of the musical. I've seen it live with the traveling company in Salt Lake. There's a lot of songs I really don't love. There's a lot of things it does, that come from the book it adapted. So it's not really the musical's fault.
Right.
That
but
I
it's a
just
very loose adaptation of the book. But
an extremely loose one. But the whole core idea of we're going to show you the same story, except this time the bad guy is the good guy, is a trope that I dislike anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, that sounds like a Dan trope. I'm fascinated that you don't like that trope.
It lacks imagination to me.
Does it?
It feels so overdone. And Wicked was, I think, one of the first ones that was doing it. But I don't really like the musical, but I loved the movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to watch the movie now that I've, watched the musical and been like, nope, this needs more time. These characters need more time to cook. Even if you change not a word, but you expand the scenes so there's just a little bit of breathing room, it would be improved. So.
Yeah, I think they did a fantastic job with the movie, and I'm excited for the second part.
So what other from the villain story do you dislike?
Like the Maleficent movies?
You didn't like Maleficent?
I did not like those.
Ah, that's interesting.
No.
This would normally be a thing that you would think I would dislike. Because, I didn't like Rogue One in part because I'm like, in order to accept Rogue One, I have to undermine the fundamental understanding I have of the original trilogy. Meaning, if the original trilogy is not about the good guys, we've talked about this, right? Good guys versus the bad guys with an overt deific force saying, no, you guys are making the right choices. And I have to instead say, no, both of them were bad. The Empire was just worse. It just completely destroys that. It ruins
the fun of it.
It ruins the fun of it. You'd think that I would dislike the villain things, but I actually really like the idea of Wicked. Part of the reason being that she does kind of go evil for a while. And it's like a lot of these, it's like, oh, she was never evil. They were always the good guys.
Yeah. See, and that bothers me. And it's in my head, it is grouped in the same category as we're going to show you how actually the cartoons you watched as a child are dystopian and horrible.
Right, which I do dislike.
Which I think is just, it's very lazy contrarianism to me.
Agreed.
Like here, The Wizard of Oz is clearly, from movie and book, a con artist. And we can accept that he is a liar and deceitful. Yeah. But going so far as to make him the absolute nefarious, sinister, mustache-twirling villain that he is.
You know what? That's actually my biggest complaint about the narrative. Well, one of my biggest complaints of Wicked is that they didn't need him to be, and they back off on it in the second half, but he could just be a dupe of the other villain, which is the professor lady, who is like the actual villain. They don't get into why anyone hates the animals. It's just message here, and metaphor here. There's no why, there's no, and that's all lumped together. My biggest problem is there's no why for why the evil people are being evil.
Yeah.
But what I do like is that it does feel like the Wicked Witch is just like, I'm wicked. I'm like, yes, it's adding dimension, but I did all those things that you saw in the show.
Yeah.
And I can watch Wicked and be like, you know what? Dorothy's kind of a doofus. And I don't care that,
Yeah, well, and the core premise of Glinda and Elphaba used to be roommates and best friends, that's fun to me. I don't mind that. But trying to make the Wicked Witch out to be the ultimate good guy, fighting for, rights and everything. No, she was a Wicked Witch. The Wicked Witch performance in the movie is one of the greatest villain performances ever. She's clearly a wicked evil witch in the book. I think, like I said, just lazy. It feels lazy to me to say, actually, she's the greatest.
Yeah, I can get that. That's interesting to me, though. I think you're going to get some pushback.
I'll definitely get pushback
in the comment section.
I always do.
So I'm curious because you had brought it up earlier. When does a an adaptation deserve a split? The Hobbit, being the one that everyone points to being like, this did not need 3 movies. But you say that Wicked needed 2. Where does that line often hit for you two?
Oh, man.
I mean, it's all in execution. So where does it hit? How good a job did they do? Right? Like,
Yeah.
Almost every book to film could be split because there's too much material in a novel to fit in a film. But can you do it in a way that doesn't completely destroy the pacing? Dune was an excellent split because there's a time jump in the middle of the book.
Yeah.
Ergo, split Dune. There's a time jump in the middle of Wicked. It's a pretty, plays already have an Act 1 and an Act 2 with a curtain down in the middle of them so you can buy snacks and merch. So...
well, and again, it's also about how you are trying to present the thing. Hobbit is not only a small story, but it is not really an epic story.
Yeah.
And trying to turn it into not 1, but 3 epic movies didn't work. Whereas I think you could make a Hobbit TV show with many different episodes, and it would work just fine.
Right, because the whimsy and would match very well with episodic, because the Hobbit is pretty episodic.
It is.
You could have done, the Hobbit films, if they would have gone all in on that, I think they could have made at least 2 good epic films. 3, I don't know. But maybe they could have done 3, but the problem is they weren't all in. They still wanted it to be a whimsical children's story. And they also wanted it to be a epic prequel to Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And they didn't decide. And so each of the movies is half of 2 movies, plus Peter Jackson, poor Peter Jackson.
Yeah, who clearly didn't want to be there.
Didn't want to be there, didn't know how to do this, had to go be on a production deadline, and had to... I mean, Lindsay Ellis's retrospective on them is really good. Go grab yourself a Nebula subscription and watch those. They're,
Has she taken her old stuff off of YouTube? And
I don't know.
Is she exclusively Nebula now?
All her new stuff is there. I don't remember if the Hobbit retrospective ever made it to YouTube or if it was Nebula. She flew out and interviewed actors and things and pieced together why it went so poorly. From insider information and from the business side and the behind the scenes, and it's a pretty damning piece of evidence on why those films are disasters.
Yeah.
Despite some great performances and an obviously talented team behind them.
Yeah. I remember watching. She had a 3-part series on The Hobbit on YouTube.
Okay, then they made it to YouTube
that's
before she left.
Probably it.
Yeah.
Before she left. So there you go.
Yeah, she's got a nice one lately on Yoko Ono that's really good.
Really?
And maybe she might have come back to YouTube. I feel like, I don't know. It was on Nebula only for a while, but maybe it's back on YouTube, or maybe they come to YouTube later. I don't know. The Yoko Ono one's pretty good too.
Cool.
I mean, it's Lindsay Ellis. They're all very insightful.
Yeah, very smart, very entertaining.
So we were going to talk about something.
We were going to talk about alien abduction narratives. Do we have 6.5 minutes left? I don't know if we can do this.
Maybe we should talk about,
talk about something else.
You got home from your thing.
I got home from my thing, and the flight there, of course, is, Salt Lake to LA to Tokyo. I hate the big long flights like that. But the flight home was just Seattle to Salt Lake. It was like an hour. So that was great.
And you probably, like customs coming off of a cruise ship, seems like it's easier in my memory than customs going through the airport and things. So
yeah, they actually did it just right. Well, when we left Japan, before we were allowed to even leave the dock, every single person on the ship had to go through Japanese customs, which is strange to me because it's leaving the country rather than entering it. But I guess they wanted to check all the passports.
I've done that before. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to speed things up in the U.S. as much as I would like it to. But there are some airports where there's a U.S. portion of the airport. They do this for like transfers and things where you actually go through U.S. customs before you get on the plane.
Amsterdam does that.
Yeah. And you kind of go through this thing, and then it's like almost like you're on U.S. soil now. This, this
This
100
portion
foot
of the
square
airport is an embassy.
Is an embassy, and now we could fly you to a place that doesn't have the proper customs to import people. But I've done that before, and then still had to go through annoying customs things.
The customs leaving the ship was actually really easy. Flew home, and my wife picked me up, took me straight home. We changed into our nice clothes. I had to put a suit on. And then we went down to the Whitney Awards because they were giving me an Outstanding Achievement Award.
Were they now?
Yes.
Well, that's nice of them. I had forgotten that the Whitney Awards were happening.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
It was pretty great.
You're distinguished.
I am. I have, and they interviewed Howard and Mary Robinette.
Oh, cool.
On little video things to play before they gave out the award. And Mary Robinette said that I am the best first-person writer this century.
Well.
So, yeah.
That's high praise.
I know.
I think you are very good. I'm not sure if I've read everyone, but you would be my favorite.
Oh, well, thank you.
First-person writer.
I was supposed to prepare a speech, which I did not do. So I got up and I told jokes until I ran out of jokes, and then I said, thank you very much, and I sat down.
Did Rob give you the award?
No, Rob wasn't there. Got the award from the current Whitney crew.
Which makes sense. For those who don't know, this is the award was started by Dan's brother.
Yeah, it is an award, a literature award, a writing award that is specifically for people in the LDS Church. Because there still is a different LDS writing award, and I've won some of those as well, but it's not as populist.
And it's writing about, so you can win it.
Yeah, it's often writing about the church, whereas this one is just tell a good story.
Yep.
So.
Well, very well.
Yeah.
Welcome back. And I assume, will we have, you don't have any food heists for any of these episodes?
I mean, I have food heists I can look up, but I haven't looked them up prior to this recording session.
Okay. I have a food heist update from a previous one as well.
Wait,
What?
you have an
What?
update?
I have an update that I
Okay.
will save
Hit
for
us.
next time. Oh, do you want it now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
right now.
Well, so I was reading through our YouTube comments, and one of the food heists where they had stolen a truck of all the eggs, whatever one that one was, where it was a ton of pallets.
Yeah.
Turns out they weren't after the eggs. They were after the truck. So they stole the truck, left the trailer on the side of the road, and they just sat there for several days until someone noticed the smell.
Not good for eggs.
Nope. So
Oh my gosh.
they stole the truck and the eggs.
This must be a different one because the first one, they stole the pallets of eggs.
Well, if, and we'll believe the internet as much as we can, this person worked on the case itself with the insurance company.
Okay.
So at least one of these food heists, someone just left all the
There
eggs
you
after
go.
stealing the
They
truck.
got intimidated. They learned that they were muscling in on some other.
Yeah. They're like,
Egg.
this is a completely different market than we thought we were a part of.
Yeah. The egg barons, we have undermined them. We'd better bolt.
The food heist detectives showed up,
Yeah.
and they are a completely different breed of police.
They're just so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they realized we got to get out of this. We want to be just truck thieves, not egg thieves.
Everyone wants to be the food heist police because they've got to try all the foods and all the, so they're experts.
Yeah.
They have to have really refined palates.
When they lean down and they stick their pinky finger in the food and taste it to say, oh, yeah, this is good chocolate pudding.
Yep. This is the chocolate pudding we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, everyone wants to be on that because those classes on learning to do that, they're really fun.
Yeah.
How's that, Ben?